All right. So, how do we get this genetic variation that we need for evolution to happen? How did the turtles be born so different that some had this big long neck and weird shell, while some were kind of normal tortoises we're used to seeing? How did whatever giraffes started out as donkeys or something, or zebras even, how did they get so different that they developed such long necks? Where did that long neck gene first come from? And how did they get those weird spots? How did zebras get those lines? Okay, so we have a few answers for you. And one is genetic shuffling. So remember, we said that in sexual reproduction, that's where you actually get variation, whereas like mitosis, that's why we learned it, where you just make exact copies, you're not going to get any variation. And variation is good. It causes evolution. Besides it causing us to be different and making our ecosystem more stable because we have like different things to fill different roles, it also helps evolution because then you have different things, you have variation, and then you can have someone who's more fit to survive than someone else. So where does that come from? Sexual reproduction, because you're taking a mom and a dad and you're mixing their genes, you're making something new that's never been seen before, because we have like 30,000 genes. So the odds of making like two of the same kid by two different parents, or even two of the same parents, is like 1 in a trillion something. So you are just creating, every time a baby is made by sexual reproduction, you are creating something totally new with totally different genes than a different gene combination. It's the same genes that have been passed on, but a different combination of genes that's never been seen before. So the fact that fertilization happens, that sperm fertilizes an egg, and you take 23 of dad's chromosomes and 23 of mom's chromosomes and get them together, that mixing of chromosomes, that genetic shuffling, you're going to get some variation. The fact that the meiosis that picked which 23 chromosomes your dad gave you and which 23 your mom gave you, that is also huge. So remember, dad had 46 and mom had 46. And there was this kind of random shuffling. We didn't talk about it that much. It was right when the pandemic started. But the pairs went to different sides when we separated during the anaphase of meiosis, where they separated not exact copies. Maybe some went here, into this new sperm cell or this new sperm cell, and there was some shuffling there, and different genes went to different sperm cells. So basically, each parent has 46 chromosomes, but there's a random shuffling that occurs during meiosis that just randomly picks, remember we flipped a coin, which 23 they're going to give to their kids. So dad might have given the red-haired gene to this kid, but the brown-haired gene to this kid, because it's kind of totally random. So where does this variation come from? The fact that we sexually reproduce, that we take two different people and mix their genes, you're going to get something totally new. The fact that meiosis randomly shuffles, even between one sibling and another, which genes the kids get, that's going to cause some variation. There was also crossing over. I don't know if you remember, but when these two line up, sometimes they like switch parts of their chromosomes, so then you get even more gene shuffling. So we could just kind of summarize it that during sexual reproduction, there is genetic shuffling. You're going to get new things you've never seen before, and that is a source of variation that can allow evolution to happen, because now you have maybe this kid who's smarter than this kid, or this kid who has, I don't know, stronger, faster, and can survive better than this kid. Okay, so where else could you get some kind of like new genetics, some really dramatic variation? So like, how did we have enough changes where a monkey was able to evolve into a human? Like, monkeys are really smart, but we're way smarter. I mean, they can use tools and stuff, and that is great, but we've made computers, we've done all this technology. So how did we get to be like so much smarter, have such bigger brains than monkeys? Well, there's also, like, how could you get something new? How about mutation? So besides just like the mixing of genes that happens during sexual reproduction, there's also mutations. And we usually think of mutations as bad, and sometimes they are, like sometimes they cause a disease. So we learned sometimes mutations cause disease. Sometimes they do nothing because it just like didn't really affect anything in the body. And there's so many genes. And sometimes they can actually do good. And they're actually a huge part of evolution. Mutation is a huge part of evolution. So how did you first have that? Remember that pigeon with like the fluffy neck or like the bell bottom feathers around its feet? How did that first come about? Like that is so strange. So maybe really kind of dramatic changes come from mutation. Like a big thing for humans is that we have these opposable thumbs, so we can use a lot of tools. Like if you ever see your dog try to like use a doorknob, your dog would be like this, right? But we have like these hands that work really well that allows us to use tools. So how did that first happen? Well, maybe we were monkeys at one time, and one monkey was born with these funny thumbs, these funny hands, and everyone said, "Haha, your hands are so weird." And he was like, "Oh, watch this! I can do all these." Things with my really cool hands. Or maybe one was born with this big brain and he was like a lot smarter than the other. That could have occurred due to a mutation. So mutation is a huge part of evolution because it brings about totally new traits that maybe not even just mixing traits, but a new trait that's never been seen before. So again, you can't control this. You can't say, I want to mutate to have a longer neck so I can reach the food. It is totally random. It could be just totally by accident, or it could be from something like x-rays, cigarette smoke, some chemicals, UV light. We've learned about how they can cause mutation in fetuses. So far, those things we've only seen cause negative changes, but mutation once in a while can cause evolution because it could maybe cause something good. Like, I don't know, the first duck with webbed feet, so it could swim really well. Okay, so mutation is a really important way to bring about new traits that could help a species evolve. So here's an example of just mutation causing totally new genes. I don't think either of these are an advantage, one that would help evolution, but there were rabbits born with no ears, and there are people born with hair all over their face. So that's probably not one where it's an advantage, probably one where it's a disadvantage. If you have a mutation, like you get a really bad sunburn that maybe even leads to skin cancer, that's not something that's going to be passed on. So if it's in your body cells, that is not going to be passed on to your offspring. You're not going to pass that sunburn, that cancer onto your offspring. It has to be a mutation like to your sperm or egg so that it can be passed on to an offspring. Most mutations are harmful. We're talking about some good ones that can lead to evolution and new traits, but most of them are either harmful or they don't do anything at all. But once in a while, they can do something really good and lead to a new species. And again, you can't control this. Acquired characteristics, like you getting a tattoo, right? Or whatever they did to this bunny or this rat in this picture, or a man that lifts weights. That's what you're doing to your body. That's not going to be passed on. That is not going to help evolution. So just to conclude, you need variation for evolution to happen. You need somebody different so that survival of the fittest can happen. You need someone to be more fit than someone else. And our two sources of genetic variation are, one, the fact that we sexually reproduce, so we mix our genes up and shuffle them, and two, that mutations can occur to introduce totally new genes.